Well, today's project's a little different. I have a hammer, and I am going to fix a hammer. Punch Like P Chicago, everything that I could find about it is, it could be from around 1985, or no, 1850. Wow, that is way different. But what we have to fix are the mushroom sides on the top of the hammerhead, sand down some of the gunk that makes it not too fun to hold. I'm not going to do a lot of detail work. I just want to get it back to a functional state, which will be fun. Now, as far as clamping things to work surfaces, I realized a little later that this is not only completely unnecessary, this is one extra step. I snapped my favorite little block of wood in half. This works great for filing down knives and filing down bevels. Not so much for this. You'll see about, 30 seconds of me just completely bumbling around and not making any real progress. Classically. And because this was probably about, an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of filing, nobody actually really needs to watch every single stroke of that. You get the gist pretty quick. That's a damn close hammer. One thing I will say though is the big files. They are absolutely wonderful to work with. I'm just looking for excuses to use them more. And I don't get weird asthma-y feelings, but going back through and listening to some of these sounds, at some point I felt a shiver go down my spine and I was like, oh, I think I understand why asthma channels are a thing. It doesn't happen every time, but there's one errant stroke that happens every now and again, and it is fucking weird. I'm not exactly sure when, but you will be able to tell when I am completely out of breath from having done this for just too long. Yeah, you see that second clamp on top of that first clamp? This is one of the signs that I've not only got to find a better way to do it, it's the silliest thing that I've ever done that has had the least effect on anything that I have ever done, without exaggeration. It did not help. But we come to our first actual restoration thing and why we do this. There's a crack in the mushroom head of the hammer. That crack doesn't go down too far, but if I want to use this as an actual piece, if I hit something wrong on another hard surface like an anvil, or if I mishit and a piece that flies off, I'd rather not go into my femur and make me a pitiful pile of dead Adrian. Nobody needs that. Well, I don't need that. So yeah, my solution is clamp it directly to the board, use the magnet to pick up all the shavings, with varying degrees of success, might I add. And after I figure out that I am putting gouges into the top of this top, I also figure that out. Don't worry, I'm an idiot. See, it's just about all the way through. By the time I'm done filing, it's not even visible. But there's the danger. Yeah. So a piece of dollar store foam core did a really, really good job. And I don't feel bad at all for it going directly into the trash when all this is done. Because it wants to keep slipping, the addition of that tiny clamp, beautiful. It's right about now that I also realize I need to get those things flush. Sorry, I got distracted by a magnet every single time. That's a lot of hammer that's not on the floor and not on my bench. Nailed it. Also, just based on how easily it files down, I'm guessing it's not the hardest thing in the world, or it could be harder. That's a very basic guess. Don't worry, I'm just going to jostle the camera a little bit, but I'm also shaking the table. So it's an argument for a heavier workbench, or sturdier legs, or both. Magnet. Not entirely sure what I'm doing here. I guess I'm taking the clamp off. There you go. There you go. Oh, yeah. More hammer left on the table. Yeah, with the hammer handle pointed straight up, this is a cakewalk. Now, when I started doing this, any of this, blacksmith and art stuff, whatever, when I started recording it, I realized how damn close the camera is to everything that you're doing, and the gymnastics that you have to play so as not to, I don't know, hit it, your work itself, and still make a reasonable amount of progress in a reasonable amount of time. So, shout out to everybody that literally knows how much fun that can be. You can see the magnetic pull, and it is stupid cool. So I'm weighing a container because I'm curious how much hammer I've taken off of this thing so far. Ignore the fact that I'm in a kitchen. Ignore the fact that my workbench is directly next to the kitchen. There is no cross-contamination outside of me being a careful person when it comes to other people. If I was alone, I would probably be less careful. Let's be completely honest. This is a shared space. But that is a nice out-of-focus shot of iron filings. And we're at 15 grams of hammer. There are 15 grams less hammer than there was when we started. And there's more to go. Alright, so one, I am clearly brilliant, and this is clearly the most successful thing I've ever done. And hopefully sarcasm is most of y'all's second language. This is to try to catch some of the filings before they go onto the ground, but the file, if you notice, goes towards the bench, so it's just spilling off the other side. Not only was this semi-futile, the fix is to put a magnet on the back, also covered so that it doesn't just like really like that magnet, you know. Hey, fixing it right now. Nobody has to know. This can be our little secret. It worked out okay enough. I actually had to put filings onto the front so that the magnets would hold the piece of paper to the damn vise. But about this, the rounding off the hammer, like the corners, that is some satisfying shit. If you find an old hammer that needs some love, grab that, grab an $8 file, and just go to town. Your arms will hurt, your hands will hurt, you're going to get something that resembles repetitive stress disorder, and you're going to have a good time. Almost guaranteed. Occasionally I'm tapping the filings out of the file, just so it doesn't get too clogged. It's such a big tooth that it really doesn't get clogged very often when it's just going against metal. Yep, magnets are strong. I really wish that this worked better more of the time, but, you know, that ain't too shabby. I'm going to have a different channel dedicated to magnets, and this is all it's going to be. And also ignore the big nasty red ass mark on the back of my hand. Turns out when metal is hot, it's not always red. And I burnt the ever-loving shit out of the back of that part of my hand. It's already almost healed. It's only been like, I don't know, a week. 2 weeks. 4.5 years. Yeah, it's been about that long. I've completely given up on taking the surface rust off with just sandpaper. I'll find a wire wheel. It'll be way nicer. Except, now we're getting to the fun part. Facing the hammer was, and is, just awesome. I really wish I had a better shot of it, to be completely honest. This does it some justice, but it goes from a rusted, pitted, unnaturally just basically it's in an unusable state for blacksmithing like I want to use it for, and it goes to, oh, you'll see, it goes nice. Also, if you haven't noticed, I have two big ass files that I've been using. That one has a round back, and I want to say it just has a more aggressive like tooth on the flat side. The other one is flat on both sides, and it works. There's nothing wrong with it. But this side of the hammer, while I'm talking about the hammer, is getting rounded because it its pits were really deep on this side. It was kind of impossible to have the best of both worlds. So I just let it have its radius. It worked better for it. And now it's flat. This is the other side. My camera died, and I was just like, well, I'll finish it. I'll come back around and do it again. So, after all that, the next file that I decided to use was a smoothing file, which, again, a pleasure to use and gives me all those funny feelings inside of my brain. But going different directions, I can see when an area is flatter, and here it's actually really good. You can see just how much of the area has consistent stroke marks, and it's fucking useful. In this state, I would argue that you could probably use this hammer for what I'm going to use it for, and it would be fine. It would be just fine. Except, you can't spell success without excess, which I don't know if that's true, so don't quote that or prove me wrong. Or do prove me wrong. I really don't give a shit what you do. You're all people, all three of you, and you can do what you like. But the ultimate life for this hammerhead is going to be 400 grit sandpaper and a bit of a buff with something that doesn't do a goddamn thing. I could go nuts. I could take it from 400 to up to 1,000, up to 3,000, but honestly, it's a little bit much. It's a little bit much for what this is for. I got this. When you don't tell the story about how you got the hammer and why you're fixing it, this was a gift from Imgur Secret Santa. A complete stranger who got a very quick blurb about me bought me this off of, I'm going to guess, Etsy, and it's fucking cool. So I'm fixing this up, and both as a thank you and putting it into the regular line of tools that I start using, I'm going to send it back their way. Or not send the hammer, but, send the video showing like it's appreciated. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? All right. There's a lot of sanding. And this was probably cut down from about an hour and a half to 2 hours of just filing and sanding. That's it. It's a significant portion of time. I keep thinking in my head that those magnets back there will continue to grow a happy little flower of iron shavings. But I keep forgetting that magnets are attracted to metal. Funny, but stupid, because it keeps touching something or getting knocked into something that it just horks itself down onto. Just like the other side, filing down with the smoothing file. Get everything nice, pretty, concise, at least to the point where it's not going to bother me. Yeah, one thing too is whatever the surface finish of the hammer is, that's the surface finish that goes onto the part that you're hammering. So it's not unimportant. It's just most normal hammers, or most hammers that are new, that's already taken into consideration and it's already good. Stop it, 8. Stop. Thank you. It's not necessary. But no, the surface finish of the hammer is what you're imparting onto something that you are smithing. It doesn't matter if it's going to hit a nail. If it hits a nail, it's a nail. You're not fucking planishing a nail. But if it was a piece of armor, it would matter. If it was a knife, it would matter. If it was my heart, it would matter. Sorry, on subject. I want to say I started it at 120 or 220 and then moved up to 320, 400. Yeah, I think it was 120, 220, 320, 400. And now we've gone into hyperdrive, where it's just a time lapse. Didn't even speed it up. And the last logical step, clean it with denatured alcohol and acetone, see if I can get some of the gunk off, and then sand it down to the point where I'm happy. I don't want it to lose its character. I just want it to not be grimy when I pick it up. And as you can see, that's a reasonably yellowish wood, and everything that's coming off there is dark, dead skin brown. So in the background chopping is my mom making dinner, which amuses me because I forgot that was happening when I went back to re-edit all these. That is all the iron that came off the hammer. So I'm gonna smell like iron until next Wednesday.
You don't have to gloves if you want.
No, I know. Oh, I'm well aware that there are gloves. I am very well aware that there are gloves. And there you go. A little afro of metal. Well, thanks for watching me bumble around with a hammer for as long as I did. And in the future, I'll use the hammer to make something. It'll be neat. Till then, I'm keeping these filings separate from other metal filings because these are hammer filings. I guess I haven't recorded that yet. Oh well. Thanks for watching. Everybody have a good day, night, what have you. And more later.